Welcome back. You're still watching Nile article, and to be shedding more light on the important topic of the Egyptian-Palestinian bilateral ties and how we are trying on the political leadership level, on the level of the presidency as well, and the efforts of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati to be alleviating the suffering that we have seen being witnessed by the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, and for the rest of Palestine to be calling for peace in the Middle East through having an independent Palestinian state on the 4th of June of 1967, borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, something that has been called for several times by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, to be shedding more light on those important developments that we have seen in the incursions against the Aqsa Mosque compound for the past few days. I'm honored to be having with me over the phone on the Nile article for tonight Dr. Monica William, the researcher in international relations. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and the Nile article.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. First of all, Doctor, how would you comment on the latest incursions and the Israeli practices by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet against the innocent Palestinians in all of Palestine, and more specifically for Al-Aqsa Mosque compound?
Of course, if we can say that what's happening nowadays is from Netanyahu and Prime Minister and its cabinet, and they try to extend the immediate military dimension. Domestic escalation helps in reinforce his image as a leader, for instance, to Israel's security, a sign of significant political polarization, of course, due to the election in Israel next October, and of course, it's mountain public pressure over the war in Gaza, the hostage issue, and of course national security for Palestinian and for Israel in this time traditionally been a unifying issue in Israeli politics. So periods of highlighted tensions often strengthen the government's ability to consolidate domestic support. And at the regional level, Israel seeks to reestablish deterrence against Iran and of course its network of allied armed groups, for instance Hezbollah in Lebanon, and of course part of Hamas and the Houthis. So the objective is to signal that attacks against Israeli territory or interests will be met with defense and deceive response, if we can say, thereby it restore what Israel's strategic doctrine described as critical deterrence. And of course another objective is to reshape the regional security environment by weakening the Iran military and of course its capabilities and limiting its strategic influence across the Middle East, particularly the groups which operating in Lebanon and Iraq and of course Syria. So Israel aims to reinforce its strategic partnership with the United States, and of course we will follow what will be happen during the mutual or bilateral meeting between Donald Trump and Netanyahu against, of course, Iran regional activities and, of course, the future of the military operation, and, of course, Gaza will be as a priority of this meeting.
Yes, Dr. Monica, of course, after the incursions that we have witnessed at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, we have seen a chorus of condemnation led by Egypt and other Arab and Islamic countries. In your opinion, what are the messages being sent through those condemnations after the incursions?
The statement, of course, it's released by Egypt, and I guess it's 8 states that refuse what happened in Aqsa Mosque. It's sensitive because it's hold profound the religious and historical and political significance around the world, and making any escalation capable of trigger wider regional tensions. The repeated attacks into the holy site and measures that alter the historical and legislative power risk fueling instability and increase and undermine, of course, protect for peace in this region. But you have to tackle with this issue. It's part of what's happening in the Middle East at all. It's part of the strategic failure of Israel in Iran. So they try to alter this failure by any random attacks in Palestinian or in Gaza and of course in Aqsa. So they try to reposition its deterrence. Of course, from Egypt's perspective and what, of course, response has had combined diplomacy and political engagement and regional coordination through intensive contact with regional and international partners. Egypt has sought to prevent further escalation and encourage restraint and revive political dialogue, especially condemning the actions that provoke tensions and undermine the religious and historical identity of its Jura. And Egypt tried to emphasize that just unilateral measure violate international law and complicate efforts to achieve a comprehensive and lasting political settlement. And at Arab level, Egypt plays a central role in strength collective coordination. Egypt worked closely with Arab countries to formulate a unified position, condemn violation at Aqsa, and support on the other side Palestinian rights. And it's part of Egypt belief or Egypt foreign policy, and of course calling for respect for international law and of course the United Nations resolution. This coordinated Arab diplomacy sends a clear message, I guess, that the Palestinian issue remains a central Arab priority and that protecting the holy sites, which of course share the regional responsibilities. So Egypt recognized that this event or these actions at Al-Aqsa can be separated from the broader security environment and of course can be separated from Palestinian issues. So sustainable stability requires addressing the root political causes of the conflict. So it's part of Egypt tactics in recently. And of course, Egypt continues to advocate for an immediate ceasefire, protection of civilian and unrestricted delivery of humanitarian assistance to Gaza, and essentially credible political process based on the two-state solution, as you said at intro, and leading to establish of an independent Palestinian state borders with its borders and
Dr. Monica, speaking of stability and the balance, as you mentioned, how do you see the success of Egypt in terms of keeping its national security interests as well as sending humanitarian aid and pushing diplomatically and politically the Palestinian cause all at the same time?
Of course, it's part of Egypt's foreign policy, as we said, and of course, it's part of the national interest in this regard. Egypt attacked a multilateral strategy in this regard. We can take it at diplomacy level, humanitarian level, and of course, balanced approach, humanitarian responsibility, national security consideration. From the start of, or at the beginning of the Gaza conflict, Egypt emphasized that providing humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians is its moral obligation and a strategic necessity, and at the same time it remains committed to safeguarding its national security and protecting the stability of its borders. Of course, through the Rafah crossing, Egypt tried to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid, including food and medical supplies and shelter materials at this, especially at this stage. But of course, we also followed what happened from or what the response of the Israeli and Egypt hospitals, for instance, have also received and treated injured Palestinians, while humanitarian agencies coordinated closely with Egyptian authorities to ensure the continuous flow of assistance despite extremely difficult security conditions. These efforts reflect Egypt's commitment to this to the civilian suffering and preventing a further deterioration of the humanitarian situation. However, Egypt also recognized that humanitarian assistance must be delivered in a manner that preserves national security. So it's tried to tackle with this issue is a balanced approach. Egyptian government implemented strict security and logistical measures to ensure the aid reached civilians. On the other side, Egypt firmly rejected any attempt at the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza, and from the day one, Egypt refused this concept, and Egypt repeatedly stressed that such a proposal presents direct threat to both Egyptian and Palestinian national security, and displacement would undermine the Palestinian cause at all and alter the demographic reality of the occupied territory and weaken the prospect of implementing the two-state solution. From a broader strategic perspective, Egypt views stability in Gaza an integral component of Egyptian and Arab national security. And
Dr. Monica, you've mentioned the displacement issue by the Palestinians, something that was refused by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Jordanian King Abdullah II. But according to the statements of President al-Sisi, that there will be no lasting peace in the Middle East without having an independent Palestinian state for the Palestinians with its own borders on the 4th of June of 1967 and East Jerusalem as its capital. How do you see the developments in this field for the Palestinians to be having their state?
Well, I have to tackle with this the Palestinian, as we say areas, export or remain the central political and security challenge in Middle East. As you said, Egypt and Jordan continue to play a very active and critical role in advancing diplomatic efforts which aim at achieving a just and lasting peace. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and King Abdullah have coordinated their position, emphasized that regional stability can be achieved without comprehensive solution of the Palestinian question based on international law and the two-state solution. Since the outbreak of the Gaza conflict, Egypt intends diplomatic effort to secure ceasefire and facilitate hostage and ensure the delivery of humanitarian assistance. At the same time, Egypt rejects any attempt for any violation to the international law to Palestinians. And Jordan plays an equally significant role, and it's very important for West Bank, if we can say, particularly in states where the Islamic and the Christian holy sites in Palestinian grounds or under the and what happened regarding from Israeli part, and of course King Abdullah repeated warned against unilateral measures that alter the historical and legal status quo in Palestinians, and of course emphasized that such actions risk fueling religious tensions and destabilize the entire region. So the clause between both sides reflects a shared strategic vision that peace cannot be achieved through military means, and both leaders engage very actively with the United States, European partners, and the United Nations and other Arab countries to mobilize international support and indeed ceasefire and to protect civilians.
Yes, Dr. Monica William, the researcher in international relations, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and the Nile article. And this brings us to the end of this episode for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.